Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I certainly do appreciate you being with me. Do you realize that I'm up over 3,000 videos, by the way? That's a fair chunk of stuff, isn't it? Yeah. And I just really enjoy being with you for my morning musings. I appreciate the wonderful comments. I appreciate the fact, pardon me, that the viewership is growing, not as fast as I would like, but it's growing. And that's up to you. Let me urge you, all right? If you are a regular viewer, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That will help my channel to grow. And more people can come to understand the glory, the power, the effectiveness of the message of fulfilled eschatology. All right? Okay, so we have been and we are involved in a study of Israel's feast days. We've been focused over the last couple of weeks on Colossians chapter 2, 14 to 17, where it is generally argued in the Sabbatarian world. Well, Paul says that Christ nailed the handwriting of ordinances that was contrary to us, nailed it to the cross, and that is supposedly a reference to the, quote, ceremonial feast days. I used to take that position, ladies and gentlemen, as a young man. I very soon saw the fallacy of that argument. Point number one, the handwriting of ordinances was not a reference to the law itself. Let me recommend you, once again, go to my website, donkpreston.com, BibleProphecy.com, and that you, in the search bar, you search for Dallas Burdett or Colossians chapter 2, 14 to 17. Dr. Burdett has done a fantastic job examining linguistically the Greek of the text, demonstrating. And by the way, many other highly reputable scholars agree with his assessment that the Greek of the text is absolutely not speaking about taking away the law and nailing it to the cross. It just simply doesn't teach that. And we know that because Paul says that let no man judge you in respect of new moons, feast days, and Sabbaths, for, and that little Greek word particle means because they are shadows of the good things about to come. Now, when Paul says they are, pardon me, that's in the present tense. So when Paul wrote in approximately 62 AD and said that the new moons, feast days, and Sabbaths were at that time shadows of things that were about to be imminently, soon, shortly fulfilled, then that is definitive proof that he did not just say they were nailed to the cross. I mean, how contradictory would it be, folks, if Paul said Jesus nailed the ceremonial feast days to the law, but the feast days are still shadows of things that are about to take place? If they were nailed to the cross, they were not still shadows. If they were nailed to the cross, they had been abrogated, done away with. But you see, it's absolutely critical that we understand what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, 17 and 18. Speaking to the crowd that was hostile to him, he said, "Do not think that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill, to bring to pass, to bring to a reality what the old covenant foretold, what it foreshadowed, what it rehearsed. For verily I say unto you, until heaven and earth passes away, not one jot, not one tittle shall pass from the law until it is all fulfilled. I have had countless Bible studies with Sabbatarian people who have said to me, well, see, Don, heaven and earth haven't passed away. Therefore, the law hasn't passed away. Well, then Colossians chapter 2 doesn't say and doesn't teach that the ceremonial laws had been nailed to the cross. Because, after all, if you're going to say that the ceremonial laws were nailed to the cross, taken out of the way, removed, invalidated, then you're saying that a massive element of the law had passed away. And yet then you're going to turn around and say literal physical heaven and earth is still here. Therefore, not one jot or one tittle of the law has passed. You see how contradictory that is? Folks, it just doesn't work. And there's all sorts of verbal machinations that people engage in. They say, well, in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus wasn't talking about the totality of the law. Yes, he was. Do not think that I'm come to destroy the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy. Now, this is what you know, or needs to be known as an elliptical statement. What does that mean? Well, it means that you're leaving specifically unsaid something that is necessary to be included in what you're saying. I did not come to destroy the law and the prophets. I came to fulfill. To fulfill what? The law and the prophets. Not one jot or one tittle shall pass from the law and the prophets until it is all fulfilled. Therefore, it was absolutely essential that all the prophets be fulfilled for the law to pass. Whatever law you want to talk about. And all of the law was not fulfilled at the cross. Okay, enough of that. But it is really important to understand this. You cannot say, in other words, well, the law passed away at the cross. Now, that's the traditional view in which I was raised in the amillennial world. That's the view of both the amillennial and the postmillennial world as a general rule. There are exceptions. But you cannot say that Jesus took the law out of the way, and yet we're still waiting for the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy. The law and the prophets prophesied. Luke chapter 16:16. Well, how did the law prophesy? Well, in Leviticus chapter 23, we are told that all of the feast days were convocations. They were rehearsals. They were types and shadows. And as types and shadows, they were foreshadowing, they were predicting, they were prophesying the fulfillment of that which they prophesied. Are you following me here? Are you catching the power of this? Now, since Jesus said the law prophesied along with the prophetic books, and since he said not one jot or one tittle shall pass from the law until the law was fulfilled, well, how do you fulfill that which is not predictive in some element, in some way? And I know that people say, well, Jesus was the first to keep the moral mandates perfectly. Well, I understand that. But we cannot overlook what Jesus said when he said the law prophesies. Thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, are not prophetic. Oh, but 6 days you shall labor, but the seventh day is a Sabbath unto the Lord. On the seventh day you shall do no labor at all. That's prophetic. Because the Sabbath anticipated, foreshadowed the ultimate, final salvation. Now, some, in response to my videos, have been saying, well, no, the seventh day Sabbath refers to us dying and going to heaven. Well, if that's true, then if I ask you, when the faithful child of God dies today, where do they go? And if you respond, well, they go to heaven, then you're saying that the seventh day Sabbath is fulfilled. Because that state of being would only come at the end of the law, according to Hebrews chapter 9, 6 to 10. Do you see how everything just perfectly segues together? Fits like a glove into one another. Okay, so one of the things, and this was where we cut off last week, on last Wednesday, the Old Covenant law, the feast days, Rosh Hashanah especially, foreshadowed the coming judgment, Feast of Trumpets. All you have to do is read Emil Schurer, Life and Times of Jesus the Messiah, Alfred Edersheim, a converted Jew. Just read the scholarly literature who document this thoroughly. The Feast of Trumpets foreshadowed the day of judgment. And after all, what do we find in the New Testament? We find that judgment is inextricably bound up with what? The trumpets. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, the resurrection, which is ultimately Sukkot. It would be at the last trumpet, 1 Corinthians 15, 52. Matthew chapter 24, 30 and 31. The Son of Man will send forth his angels. They shall gather together his elect at the sound of the great trumpet, a reference right back to Isaiah 27 and verse 13. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, 15 to 18. The Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the sound of the trumpet. Now, folks, these are resurrection and judgment passages. And by the way, let's not forget, the final three feast days are a complex, a united complex. They follow hard upon one another. They are interwoven and interrelated with one another. So what I've been sharing with you, is what we saw last week, is that from Pentecost, and I've just got to mention this again, the Feast of First Fruits, was itself not completely fulfilled on the day of Pentecost. I've said this before, and then I've had people accost me about this. Well, you're just wrong in saying Pentecost or the first four feasts were completely fulfilled. I very specifically said Pentecost, Feast of First Fruits, was not completely fulfilled on the day of Pentecost. It began to be fulfilled, but the Feast of First Fruits was still ongoing in fulfillment as the gospel went into Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth, so much so that you could see, as Paul spoke of those who were of the first fruits of Achaia. And James saying, James who is writing to the 12 tribes, scattered abroad. And he says, we are a kind of first fruits unto him. So Pentecost was not completely fulfilled at the cross, Pentecost. The first fruits began to be gathered in, awaiting the harvest at the end of the age. Boy, I'm running out of time. So, the point being that these final three feast days, they are particularly eschatological in their significance. Okay? And what we find from Pentecost onward is the eager, earnest expectation of the coming judgment. I shared with you some of the rabbis referred to that 4-month period of time from Pentecost until Yom Teruah as the time of waiting for the judgment. Why? Feast of Trumpets. Okay. I'm out of time for today, but I hope you can see the importance of understanding the fulfillment of the final 3 feast days. The law, none of the law could pass until it was all fulfilled, but the law prophesied, and the law prophesied through by the medium of the feast days. That's precisely what Paul is saying in Colossians chapter 2 when he says the new moons, the feast days, and the Sabbaths are present active shadows of the good things that are about to come. The fulfillment of the last 3 feast days and the ultimate fulfillment of Pentecost, obviously, they all had to be fulfilled before they could pass away. So let me put it like this. If you are a Sabbatarian, and I know that I have an awful lot of Sabbatarian wonderful folks watching these videos, if you're a Sabbatarian and you're going to argue that God took away the ceremonial aspects of the law and he did it through the cross, then you're barking up the wrong tree, if I may use that terminology, by appealing to Colossians chapter 2, because Colossians 2 teaches exactly the opposite. It teaches that those last 3, especially, feast days had not yet been fulfilled and would not be fulfilled until what they foreshadowed was fulfilled. So if you are a Sabbatarian and you're looking for the judgment, the second coming, and the resurrection, then you are technically, implicitly for sure, you are thereby positing the yet future fulfillment of the final 3 ceremonial, sacrificial, bloody, animal sacrifice feast days. Folks, this is a huge, huge conundrum. You cannot believe that God took the feast days, the ceremonial feast days, out of the way at the cross, and at the same time say we're looking for the judgment, the parousia, and the resurrection, or the new creation of Shemini Atzerat. Okay, tomorrow, on Tuesday, I'm going to be sharing with you how, as I've already said, from Pentecost onward, the New Testament writers were eagerly expecting the about to come judgment. Let me recommend you read the book of James and you read the book of 1 Peter. In the meantime, I'll see you there.